Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of My Adventures with Superman. Great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, this show is so charming, and it just it gets you giddy because also the tone was kind of interesting because I thought it was on Adult Swim, I didn't think it was going to be Invincible level or like The Boys level of stuff, even but I guess just Adult Swim ended up being the one to grab it. But like I said, maybe that's just my thought, because I talked about this during my trailer discussion. Maybe it's just going to be some more adult themes that it kind of deals with in some capacities, or maybe just Adult Swim just happened to be the ones who kind of got the show. Maybe it was always meant to be on Adult Swim, or maybe Adult Swim was the one that kind of grabbed the show. Either way, whatever the case may be, some really interesting things is seeing how Clark, this seems to be his journey of obviously discovering who and what he is, because it seems like even in his 20s, he still has so many questions. What I also think is really interesting is he doesn't have all his powers, because later on when they're in the fight, I was like, wait, he's not using heat vision or anything. Obviously, he knows how to fly and he's got his super speed, but there's so many of his abilities he hasn't unlocked yet. And how they go about depicting his super speed and stuff, it's this show has a very anime aesthetic. Even the end credits feels like something you'd see in an anime. And so I think that's such an interesting, I think the show has a very unique aesthetic, because it looks like because I brought it up previously in my trailer discussion, that it looks like Invincible and kind of feels like Invincible, which is ironic considering Superman is in some capacities obviously a big influence on Robert Kirkman making Invincible. Obviously there's a lot of references and inspirations from a lot of other comic stuff from DC and Marvel. And, you get what I'm saying, but obviously there's a lot of direct parallels between Invincible and, Superman. So like I said, just saying it reminds me of Invincible. It's just kind of, like I said it at the time, I'm saying it again, it's just kind of funny and ironic to say that. But either way, him as a kid, he unlocking his super speed, and how that's depicted. It's very anime-ish. You're moving so fast, you kind of turn to a blur. Which I wonder. It doesn't seem like we're going down that route, but it kind of when I think blur, I think of Smallville, because that's what I believe it was Lois that gave him that name, the Blur. Obviously she's always typically attributed to being the one that gives him his super names anyway. But yeah. So that was kind of interesting, and kind of so obviously we're kind of jumping over a lot of the Smallville stuff. I think that's kind of interesting that we're not even, maybe as the episodes go on, we'll kind of flash back a little bit to some of his younger years, but it's how much does Clark know about where he's from and everything, because it seems like he still has questions. So I'm wondering, are they going to make it for this story he doesn't learn a lot about himself until his later years? Did he hide it from his parents? Do they not know that he knows about his powers? Maybe they never knew, I guess now the day comes that we have to answer that. I'm curious, because obviously this is also early in his story and he doesn't have his Superman suit yet, which obviously there's the bit in Superman and Lois. It's oh, cool suit, thanks, my mom made it for me. I wonder, does Martha typically make his suits? Because I'm thinking because he finds it in Superman and Lois, but I think the red jacket Clark has in the final season or so of Smallville, I want to say Martha made that for him. I don't remember. I'm curious about that. Either way, but like I said, Clark is still early enough that he has a hard time controlling his powers, turning off the alarm clock or turning off the faucets. Gotta be a normal guy. And then when he tried to save, he's all right, I had to save the kitten. I was that's super sweet. Like I said, he's just so, he's got, and it's kind of what James Gunn kind of describes him as, kind of a big galoop. He's big, but he's also got this heart of gold and stuff like that. But I also love the route we're taking with Jimmy. Jimmy's the conspiracy dude that's oh, aliens are real and it's gotta be this and sewer monsters. He's kind of the tinfoil hat dude. Not I think, yeah, I guess making him the conspiracy theory person, just kind of lumping everything. I'm if I spitball some stuff enough times, it's gonna be real. Cause he's when they meet quote unquote Superman, it's oh, aliens are real. I knew it. This verifies everything I've ever believed. Which yeah, you're right on the money with the alien situation. But also, the parallel and juxtaposition between Clark being like, I gotta be normal. Lois being like, gotta be extraordinary. And her and Clark bumping into each other and being like, and especially the place where he gets his donuts and it's the lady's giving him the bib because it's like, oh, he gets the sprinkles all over himself. It's like, Clark, honey, Clark is here. Did you give him the bib? I was like, oh god. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna leave and then just kind of die of embarrassment and so we never see each other again. But hey, we run into each other at work. Lois is still early enough in her career. She's not just like hired to the Daily Planet. She's an intern and she's here to train the other interns. I do like little stuff in the background because we do see in like her room there's like a Vicky Vale. Like, I'm sure you're not going to expand too much on the DC lore, but little references here and there, knowing like, okay, Vicky Vale exists, so it would make sense, like, as a reporter. So she's probably like well established in this universe, Vicky Vale. I'm curious what their dynamics are ever like. Once again, it's not really knowing comics that well. I've never known those characters to interact. Maybe they've interacted in some capacity. I'm sure in the comics, sure, but it's like, it's one of those things where like, yeah, you're in the same field, one in Gotham, one in Metropolis, so of course there'd be some crossover and in some capacity, but I think, I was about to say, like, I like this version of Lois, but I was like, to be fair, I'm sure it plays into a lot of Lois's where it's just like, right, I smell a good story, so I'm going on ahead. And yeah, Perry sure gave us the go-ahead for this and didn't threaten to kind of basically fire me because I keep doing this. I'm an intern and not a journalist, and I keep trying to, like, take a leap at these jobs. So she goes to her extensive network, which is a whole bunch of a paper delivery group of kids who want to put out their own stuff along with Perry's, releasing of the newspaper. So that, once again, it's sweet and wholesome, having to make a bargain with the kids, and it's like, right, helping out with like papers and reports they have to do. It's kind of adorable, the crossword puzzle. One of them made it, and it's like kind of like, it's not perfect, it's kind of messed up, but yeah. I even love our villains are kind of kooky, where it's just kind of like, yeah, go ahead and say that a little louder in front of like the thieves and murderers we hired. And it's like, okay, who touched a robot? Looks like it was Bob. It's like, oh god, poor Bob. I mean, it's like, you don't want to end up like Bob. And then later on, when it's like, oh, we got to handle this, one of the people activates the robot, and she's like, why would you activate the robot? And then she was talking to her right-hand guy, like, okay, we got to do this, and she turns and he's running away. I guess like they're just a small time group of thieves. I guess I don't know if anyone, because they were planning on selling all that stuff, right? I think that was kind of understood, but like no one, all of a sudden, like all the major thieves, like all the other like sellers of like weaponry and stuff like that have been disappearing, which feels like that's probably going to be like an overarching story, I would assume. Like the fact that they're disappearing, I was like, what is that about? I wonder, is there any direct correlation with like the robots, or is that just kind of like maybe someone's getting rid of their competition? I have no idea. It's interesting, too, for Clark and Lois to also have their first fight in this episode, where it's this situation. Because obviously, like, Clark goes along with everything that Lois is saying just because, like, well, he likes her, but he also trusts her. But it's like, I think that kind of goes into, like, who Superman is, that he's so willing to trust people. Like, obviously, this is on a more smaller scale, but I think the fact is he's willing to give people he's kind of a big beluga in that he's going to like always give people the benefit of the doubt. And that's always going to be his superpower, is always seeing the best in people, regardless of who they are, and giving them a chance. Like I said, this is on a smaller scale, plus he also likes Lois, so there's a little bit of a biased situation there. But for him, it's like he doesn't like someone lying. It's like, right, you lied to me. Like, you took advantage of me and Jimmy, and you knew, like, this, like, you lied to us. She's like, if I didn't lie to you, you wouldn't have helped me. It's like, but then later on, she thinks about it, and she's like, yeah, your big, dumb, beautiful friend. He's like, well, Clark, wait, did you just call him like, I think it was like, did you call him handsome? But then she's like, right, he does help out people. I kind of already know that about, at the store, and then helping out with like Flips and the other kids. It's like, if I had been honest with him, he probably would have actually helped me regardless. So, he was trying to like find other ways around, like, it's like, right, this seems like a dangerous situation for you and Jimmy, and me as well. So Like I said, finding that line between Superman and Clark Kent is going to be an interesting thing to see Clark go through that journey in this movie. I mean, I said movie, Jesus, TV show. But either way, when it comes to the showdown between Clark and the Machine, like, obviously it's not even like an easy one-sided fight. He's kind of getting his ass handed to him a little bit. Like, he gets scruffed up a little bit, which I think it's interesting. Like, I guess maybe I'm wondering, like, I mean, you know, Clark can get beat up because like things can hit him pretty hard, but to see him, I don't know if that's just an animation choice to show that he kind of got scruffed up. We even see his eye kind of gets a little black. Because I think it is a thing of maybe it's just like, right, because he's not full-blown Superman yet. He's not come into his powers and his capacities, so he's not fully the Man of Steel. Those robots would probably be like later on Superman. It's like, oh, those things hit me, I won't like get bruised up, like he got a black eye and everything. Once again, that could just be liberties they're taking with the animation, but it seems purposeful to show like, no, he's not at full strength. Like, he's not like even though he's a full-blooded Kryptonian, he's just not at his full power yet because he hasn't fully discovered everything about himself. So whether it's just, it seems like it's a combination of just, you know, a psychological element, a mental element of just not knowing who he is, so he can't fully embrace all that he is power-wise. But he goes toe-to-toe with the robot and ends up beating it. But, you know, a robot like that should have been quick work for him. Like I said, just showing you that he's still in his infancy with his whole Superman situation. So, and he got pretty banged up, and Lois was able to shut down all the other machines except for the last one. And in that moment, he panicked. And I love that representation of like his eyes glow, and I was like, oh, he's about to get heat vision, but it's like, no, it activates something, and even like the S kind of like flows on his chest, because at the same time, I think back in Smallville, the ship, maybe it's still buried wherever it is. It might still be in a place where he crash landed. It doesn't seem like his parents may have moved it to a barn, because it looked like it was an open pit, like a pit from when it crash landed all those years ago. It seems like that's kind of, it almost feels like there's limiters on him, and in moments of crisis, like he breaks through those limiters. Like, very, like I said, very anime aesthetic of like, yeah, you've got these secret limiters on you. Kind of like, if I had to compare it like Naruto, like little by little releasing the Nine Tails like chakra, like it kind of feels like that to some extent. Because even then, like also like his wounds healed up, so it's almost just like I said, in that moment, like more of his Kryptonian powers came out, the super speed kicked in, and he took out the machine with like a mega punch. It's like, okay, so I'm even stronger than I was before. Just like little by little, I'm unlocking more and more, like removing whatever limiters. It'd be interesting if they did kind of like say that. Like I said, it might just be like a mental thing keeping him from fully going full Superman, or maybe there are like Kryptonian limiters put on him. I think that would be interesting, but I doubt that's the case. But like I said, it's gonna be interesting to see how this kind of progresses. And but it's like, oh, we got photos of Superman, and it's like, wait, you did? But luckily they're all blurry photos, so Perry being the boss, that it's just like, right, I see that there's a story here, but you guys didn't obey my orders, and it's just like, oh, just get out. And so it's like, right, prove to me that this, you know, all is kind of real. Give me an interview with Superman, and that's all Lois focused on. It's like, cool, if we get an interview with Superman, find out all there is to know about him and all his secrets, and get it on interview and TV, then we're golden with Perry. And it's like, really? That's what you took away from that conversation, you know? So I thought that was, I think it's just kind of this beautiful beginning of the team where, like I talked about previously too, I think I talked about this in my trailer discussion. I might have cut it out, but I think it's still in there, was that this is going to be our first time really getting the trio in a very long time. Obviously, we never got it in the Snyder verse, because Jimmy was like killed at the beginning of Batman v Superman, I want to say. So we never had this trio's dynamic. The last time we had this was Smallville. Because obviously even Superman and Lois, like, Jimmy doesn't really come up. I mean, I guess Supergirl kind of, like, had that kind of dynamic, because it was like, you know, it's like Kara, Jimmy, and Wynn kind of play into that dynamic. So I would say that's the closest, but of this more traditional, like, Lois, Clark, and Jimmy dynamic, this trio, it's like, this is going to be our first time really getting this dynamic like this. So that's going to be pretty dope to see where everything kind of goes. Obviously, there's another episode, so I'm going to get to that right after this. But kind of a neat start. Once again, just figuring out what exists in this continuity, what doesn't, where Clark is along his journey. Like I said, we're still seeing that even in his 20s, he's still in his infancy of this. But that's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.